In the quiet, snow-covered town of Maple Hollow, an elderly widow named Margaret Holt discovered two unconscious bikers, Luke Tanner and Jared Cole, from a feared gang called the Iron Serpents lying frozen by the roadside after a blizzard. Despite their reputation, she chose compassion over fear, dragging them through the snow to her farmhouse and nursing them back to life. What happened next will change not only their lives, but the heart of an entire town forever. The night's blizzard had silenced the small countryside town of Maple Hollow, burying every sound under heavy snow. Dawn arrived pale and quiet. Frost clung to window panes, and smoke rose weakly from a few chimneys. At the edge of town stood a small farmhouse, weather-beaten and lonely. Inside, Margaret Holt, a 75-year-old widow, tightened a faded wool shawl around her shoulders. Her husband, Walter, had been gone for years, and her children lived far away. Still, she carried on with purpose, feeding stray animals and keeping her home in order, one quiet morning at a time. That day, the cold felt sharper than usual. Margaret stepped outside, her boots crunching through the snow, to scatter crumbs for the birds. But as she glanced toward the fence by the road, something unusual caught her eye. Two dark shapes half buried in the white. Margaret squinted through the glare of the snow. Her heart began to thud as she realized the shapes were not logs or debris. They were men. But before we dive into what happens next, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from today? Drop your country in the comment below and please like the video. Thank you. Now let's continue. She pushed forward, her shawl whipping in the wind. The closer she got, the clearer it became. Two strangers lay crumpled beside a fallen motorcycle, their faces pale and lips blue. Leather jackets clung to them, stiff with frost, and across their backs were bold, menacing words. Iron Serpents. Everyone in Maple Hollow knew that name, a motorcycle gang known for their roughness. But Margaret didn't feel fear. She felt something stronger, compassion. She knelt beside them, pressing her trembling hand against one man's cheek. He was still breathing, barely. "Hold on, boys," she whispered, her voice shaking. "You're not dying here today." It took every ounce of strength in her frail body, but Margaret dragged both men, one at a time, through the snow toward her farmhouse. The wind howled around her, biting her skin, but she didn't stop. Inside, she laid them by the fire, stripped away their wet jackets, and wrapped them in thick quilts. Their boots left muddy prints across her old rug, and their gloved hands steamed as the ice melted off. She heated broth on the stove and rubbed their frozen fingers, whispering soft prayers as the fire crackled. Hours passed. The storm outside faded into a hush. The house glowed with warmth and the faint scent of bread. And for the first time in years, the quiet of Margaret's home held more than one heartbeat. By morning, one of the men stirred. His name, she would later learn, was Luke Tanner. He blinked in confusion at the small, cozy room, lace curtains, old wooden furniture, and a kind-faced woman dozing beside the fire. When she noticed him awake, she smiled gently and handed him a cup of hot broth. His voice cracked as he asked, Why'd you help us?" Margaret's eyes softened. "Years ago, my Walter was saved by a stranger when no one else would stop," she said quietly. "I'm just doing the same. Kindness doesn't ask who you are, son. It just acts." Luke stared at her, speechless. The other man, Jared Cole, still slept heavily, but his breathing was steadier. For the first time in a long while, Luke felt something he hadn't known he missed, warmth that wasn't from a fire. Days turned into weeks. Under Margaret's care, both men recovered. They helped her with chores to repay her kindness. Luke fixed the fence, while Jared chopped wood for the fireplace. Sometimes they'd sit around the kitchen table, sharing quiet meals and laughter. Luke, eager to be useful, learned to bake bread, though he burned most loaves. Margaret's gentle laughter filled the air whenever he cursed softly under his breath, embarrassed like a boy caught stealing cookies. Jared, quieter and more reflective, spent hours carving wood. One afternoon, he presented Margaret with a birdhouse he'd made for her yard. "Figured the birds deserved a roof too," he muttered. She smiled, tears glimmering in her eyes. Their presence changed something in her house. It no longer felt empty. Word spread through Maple Hollow like wildfire. Everyone had heard that the widow on the edge of town was harboring 2 bikers from the Iron Serpents. Some called her foolish. Others pitied her. But curiosity won over fear. Neighbors began stopping by, bringing firewood or groceries, pretending it was just to check on her. They would find the 2 bikers helping her hang laundry or kneeling beside her during Sunday service at the old chapel. The town's cold suspicion slowly thawed. People started seeing the men not as outlaws, but as human beings. Margaret's small act of compassion began healing more than just 2 riders. It began softening an entire town. When spring came, the snow melted into muddy roads and green shoots. One morning, the deep growl of engines echoed down Margaret's lane. The Iron Serpents had come. Dozens of riders pulled up, their presence filling the air like thunder. For a moment the yard went silent. The men dismounted, their eyes wary but respectful as they saw the old woman standing by her porch. Luke hugged her tightly, emotion cracking his voice. "You gave us something we didn't think we deserved. A home, even for a while." Margaret smiled, her shawl fluttering in the wind. "Then promise me you'll carry that warmth with you, wherever you ride." They nodded, their engines roaring to life once more. As they rode off down the winding road, the townsfolk who had gathered by their fences watched in silence, not with fear but with newfound respect. Months later, the familiar thunder of motorcycles returned. But this time it wasn't for farewell. The Iron Serpents had come back, not as wanderers but as friends. They worked together to fix the town's old chapel roof, repaint Margaret's fence, and mend her porch. On her birthday, they surprised her with a hand-carved wooden bench placed by the road, the same spot where she had found Luke and Jared that fateful morning. A bronze plaque gleamed on it. To Margaret Holt, the angel who found the Iron Serpents. As the townspeople gathered, Margaret's eyes welled with tears. "I didn't find them," she said softly. "They found themselves." From that day forward, the story of the widow and the riders became a cherished tale in Maple Hollow. A story not of winter's cold, but of a heart so warm it melted every frozen soul it touched. And the bench by the roadside still stands, a quiet reminder that sometimes angels don't have wings. They wear shawls and carry soup to strangers in the snow. Before you scroll away, take a moment to think about this. The world is full of noise, judgment, and pain, but stories like this remind us that compassion still lives among us. At Echoes of Life Stories, we share true and powerful tales that touch the heart and restore faith in humanity. If this story moved you, if it made you smile, tear up, or believe again in the goodness of people, please don't just watch and leave. Hit that subscribe button, tap the notification bell, and join our growing family of kind hearts. Your one click helps us keep spreading messages of hope, second chances, and love in a world that desperately needs them. So please like, share, comment, and let us know where you're watching from. Together, let's keep kindness alive through the power of storytelling. Because here at Echoes of Life Stories, every story is a heartbeat, and your support keeps it alive.